The show where there are no penalties, nothing is offside, and everything is fair game. This is The Gloves Are Off.
Hello and welcome to another edition of The Gloves Are Off. I'm Moses Woldu. We got a great show for you. Lots about the Stanley Cup playoffs. And of course, Mike Babcock returning to Toronto in essence. It's Canada's team, right guys? Brett Morton, what do you think of that?
I don't really like that, but hey, we'll just leave it at that.
All right, well, Brett, awesome. You're filling in for Andrew Brethauer today. Of course, he is out on a golf tourney. So you have filled in his shoes, which I'm sure you will do an awesome job. So,
awesome. Thanks for having me.
Oh, pleasure. And of course, this guy, no stranger to the show. I know you were hoping to take on Bucky, but Bucky ditched. So, but you know, you got a pretty good, worthy opponent. A great guy himself, one of the best CPCA chuck wagon drivers. And I'm pleased to be joined by BJ Carey. How are you?
Thanks for having me, guys. Great.
All right. I know you just came from a tough day. You were out in Meadow getting the horses ready. And, of course, our good friend here, Brett, was kind of teasing up a little bit of a story you guys worked on that will happen later this week. But we got to get to the show. So let's get to this. And, of course, Mike Babcock, we just kind of teased it up a little bit. He is now a part of Canada's team. That's his words, not mine. I don't necessarily think the Leafs is Canada's team, but that's what he thinks. And you know what? If I'm getting paid 8 years, $50 million, so $6.25 per season, I might call him Canada's team as well. What do you guys make of this move? Is it a smart one for both Babcock and the Leafs? And I guess we'll start with you, BJ.
For the Leafs, I think it is. The Leafs have been, they haven't really done anything since Pat Quinn left the Leafs years ago. I think he's going to get some of those younger guys going. I guess they aren't so much young anymore, Dion Phaneuf and Kessel, but I think it's a smart move for the Leafs. Babcock, I'd like to see him in Edmonton because I'm an Oilers fan. But
they got a good guy in McLellan.
Oh, for sure, yeah. But you got to go where your family wants to go, and it's like anything. It's a business.
Yeah, no, it should be interesting to see what Babcock can do in Toronto. You know, he's won those gold medals with Team Canada. He's won World Junior Gold as well, and he's won Stanley Cups with Detroit. But you know, he's always had Yzerman, Lidstrom. He's had Nick Kronwall, he's had Datsuk, he's had Zetterberg.
He's got those veterans in place.
He's going to Toronto where there's nobody. Like, sure, there's Phil Kessel, but that guy, you know, he's as consistent as the weather. Like, and then you got Phaneuf, who's kind of, a lot of people say he's a top two defenseman. I don't really see him as a top two defenseman, so it should be exciting to see. And it'll be a real test to see what kind of a coach Mike Babcock is, if he can come up to the pressure of Toronto and stand up there and see what he can do.
Well, you're an Edmonton guy. You're really close to the area. I know you live there. You're an Oilers fan. You understand the pressure that goes on for cheering a team and the frustration as well. Who faces more pressure then? Would it be Todd McLellan, who got hired earlier in the year, the day before Babcock, or Mr. Babcock himself in probably the harshest media market there is in pro sports?
I would say Babcock. McLellan has a young team. There's no proven guys on there. I don't think there's anybody, I guess, besides their captain in Ferentz. He's the only one that's won a cup on that team. So I don't think there's any, unless they get a couple big name players. All the pressure's on Babcock. Being in Toronto, McLellan just has to go and improve what Todd Nelson finished the season off, and Todd did an excellent job. Hopefully he stays on with McLellan, but I think Babcock has all the pressure in the world.
Yeah, no, Babcock, he's, like you said, it's the media market of Toronto, and that's everybody looks at Canada. So maybe that's why he's saying it's Canada's team, but like you said, like, there's going to be media in his face every day after every game. Like, I don't know if he's going to be used to that, so he's got to bring that team up with all of that. And I think Toronto is just starting a rebuild, where in Edmonton we're kind of hopefully, as everybody has said for numerous years.
10 years in.
Exactly, that they can maybe turn it around. But you know what? They got Peter Chiarelli, who is in my opinion, one of the best general managers in the NHL. Okay. And then they got Todd McLellan, who has always had success in San Jose. He might not have...
And had success with Everly and Hall of the Worlds.
Exactly. Yeah. So you know what? I think getting that new blood in there and getting these guys that are excited to play, even Connor McDavid when he comes, you know, they still do need some big name pieces like BJ said. So I think all the pressure's on Babcock though, and McLellan can just go and do his thing.
I want to ask you this. All right, well, we have that all covered, but what's been more tantalizing to hear over the past week and a half, even prior to the NHL draft, the Oilers picking up McLellan, Mike Babcock going to Toronto, or the Stanley Cup playoffs themselves? Because and the reason why I say that is because the Stanley Cup playoffs seem to be overshadowed. There are more people interested in what's going on behind the scenes than there was actually going on in the game. Now, is that an issue for the National Hockey League? And I'll start with you, Brett.
In a sense, I'd say yes, because like you said, the playoffs themselves have taken a back seat. I don't know if that's maybe because there's not so many like all the Canadian teams are out, but I agree, like some of the teams like Anaheim and Chicago, they're not getting the fair assessment of what they can do, because most teams are, looking to see what the Oilers and the Leafs are doing. So I do feel that they have taken a back seat, and you know what, it's kind of, I guess being an Oilers fan, it's like, yeah, like I'd rather see what they're doing and then because they're
What's going on with Chicago and Anaheim?
Yes,
Or any of those teams?
but in a sense, as a hockey fan, you're kind of getting taken away from the actual hockey. So I do feel like it's not very fair for those teams that are still left.
And I see it both ways. I don't care what happens with Toronto. When Babcock was hired, I was like, okay, well, when they said Babcock wasn't coming to Edmonton, I'm like, okay, well, it's Toronto or Buffalo. So really, that was probably a big huff in the U.S. because Buffalo wanted him. Buffalo was saying he was lying. There was a bunch of controversy there. I think around this community, yeah, I bet you there was a lot of people looking at the Edmonton scenario, because a lot of people from Lloydminster go to Edmonton for those games. So worldwide, it's hard to say. I mean, I think that.
But even for you, were you more intrigued? I want to ask you, just as did you pay attention more to what was going on in the coaching realm than the actual playoffs themselves?
Well, yeah, because I have my phone set to TSN for the Oilers, but I haven't really sat down and watched a whole game through the playoffs, so I don't have time with the horses in. So everything that's coming to me is highlights on my phone. So.
All right, guys, we're going to take a commercial break, and when we return, we're going to continue the talk of hockey and talk about the Hawks' crushing defeat in overtime, and of course, make sure that our studio doesn't fall apart with a couple of noises going on. We'll be back with more Gloves Are Off.